I think when we do these hearings, some might believe that we're trying to go after one company or one contractor. That's not the case. We're just trying to follow the facts and find the truth and understand what's happening. And what is so troubling to me is over all of these hearings, for example, the water issue you mentioned, Mr. Smith, over all of these hearings, we see the day after the hearing the routine denial from the contractor and generally support of the contractor from the Department of Defense. And it's inexplicable to me why that has happened and why it continues to happen. A couple of additional questions, if I might. Let me ask about Kellogg Brown and Root, the contractor on electrical work, retaliation against, or at least suggested retaliation against anyone who raised questions. We've had others who worked for Kellogg Brown and Root testify and say that they described to us the kind of implied retaliation that would exist if you spoke out or if you took a different course. Mr. Childs, Mr. Peters, are you aware of any of that?
Yes, I am. If you spoke up, then they will either move you to a different base, pull you off the project, or put you on something minor, or ask you if you want chicken or pasta on your way home.
What's that refer to, chicken or pasta?
What meal you want on your plane home, so you would be terminated.
So that's the way they suggest that your next question will be chicken or pasta?
That's correct. That's a common statement.
And that means keep doing what you're doing, we'll put you on a plane and fire you and get you out of here.
That's correct.
Mr. Childs, do you hear any of that?
I talked to several guys when I was out doing inspections, and they would tell me, off the record, that, I just can't say anything. I need a job, and they'll send me home. I can't. I talked to one gentleman in particular at the RPC complex, and he was one guy who understood the bonding and grounding, but they wouldn't listen to him because he just didn't happen to be the guy in charge. And he told me, as we were standing off the side talking, that you'll never see me again after I've been caught talking to you like this. And I didn't see him again. And in my travel then with Task Force Safe around to other bases, I actually did run into the guy. And sure enough, right after agreeing with DCMA and Task Force Safe and the problems out there that they weren't bonding and grounding it right, he was gone.
Now, you went out with this project on behalf of the government. Were the commanding officers that were in your company during these tours, were they aware of these issues? For example, retaliation, all of the difficulties you've expressed with respect to the work itself, but not only that, retaliation, the unwillingness to speak. And the reason I asked that question is we had a man named Rory who worked for KBR who testified at one of our hearings, and he was told very explicitly, don't you dare speak to a government auditor that comes here. You do, you're going to a base with active military action. At that point, it was Fallujah. You speak to an auditor, you're seen speaking to a government auditor, you're out of here. We'll reassign you to Fallujah or we'll fire you. I mean, do the commanding officers of our armed forces know this goes on, do you think?
Well, the rumor or the suggestion of that is all over Iraq. Whether they would actually believe that KBR would do that, I don't know. But in my opinion, everybody over there that worked around them very long knew that that's exactly what would happen.
Senator Whitehouse and I and others have directly raised these issues. I have raised this specific issue with Secretary Gates on a couple of occasions. I have spoken with Deputy Secretary Lynn. He has now responded in writing to me yesterday. It is not as if the Pentagon is not aware of what the allegations are. These hearings are public. Much of these issues have been publicized, and in fact, some in the Defense Department have responded on the record. But we're going to take the information that we received again today and meet with Deputy Secretary Lynn, especially because he is now engaged on this, and raise these questions once again about, number one, the competence of the work that was done that could still very well today be threatening the lives and the safety of American troops in the theater. Number two, protecting American taxpayers. If we have contractors that are getting a lot of money through the Defense Department given to contractors, and the work is shoddy, not well done, reckless, and unsatisfactory, how on earth can they be paid for that work, number one? And even worse, how can anyone suggest they be given award fees or bonuses above that which they are paid to do? We're going to raise these questions in much more detail as a result of your testimony, and continue to push even harder to get the right result. This should not be difficult. It ought to be that our government just naturally moves in this direction, to see something wrong and immediately and dramatically moves to make it right. We ought not have to push anybody to do the right thing. It is so disappointing to me that we are out there having to push people to do the right thing. And it's true on the water issue. It's true on so many issues that I've held hearings on. But let me say, Mr. Childs, you could easily have stayed home today and found other things to do. And Mr. Peters, you at the end of your testimony suggested that someone will probably say you're a disgruntled employee. Maybe so. We've heard that about a lot of people that had courage to speak out. But the fact that the two of you actually were there and inspecting wiring and doing wiring and giving us an assessment here today of what you found is just very important. That adds to the base of knowledge about what we're dealing with and what we need to do to correct it. And Mr. Smith, when I asked the question about losing your job, I don't want anybody to take from that my notion that you're anything other than a really extraordinary person who served your country well and ran into, I think, some folks that didn't countenance very well someone who was raising questions about contracting in Iraq. You did the right thing, and perhaps for doing the right thing, you paid for it with one of the positions you had held. And I regret that, but we've had others, Bonatine Greenhouse, who appeared here twice, a great model of courage. And she paid a great price for being honest about some things over in the building over across the river. And again, let me say to Ms. Harris, who is here today, and to the other parents of soldiers who have been injured or some of whom have lost their lives, I think you do a great service by not quitting and not giving up and not just accepting what somebody says happened. It's very important to try to understand what are the set of facts here and where does the truth lead us. In many ways, what you did last year, I would say to Ms. Harris, and the provocation for us to hold a hearing and the speaking out and the things that you have done before that and since that, I know have been very nettlesome to some in our government. So the last thing they want is anybody to be raising all these difficult questions. But I think doing so honors the memory of your son and honors the memory of other soldiers who have lost their lives, and I think will provide some measure of protection for soldiers now in the theater. So let me thank all of you for appearing at this hearing, and this issue will continue until we get a satisfactory resolution. This hearing is adjourned.